Chapter 11. We're going to need a bigger boat. Karenna. Karenna floated in near Nulgi, a jump-suited liminal deity, guarding the realm between her ship's modular rings. Stillness. Peace. For the moment. Tension in her gut unspooled, leaving her connected to the universe by a thin umbilical cord, the rest of her free to float in embryonic ignorance. But there wasn't much time. Never enough time. She folded herself back in again and moved forward. Always forward. The massive doors of the transition point loomed ahead, stalwart beckoning gates of pearl waiting to welcome her back to reality, and she swam toward them. "Okay, Lee, what do you have for me?" Karenna asked, stumbling as she entered the full grav of the engineering ring. After the quiet of empty space between the rings, her senses were immediately assaulted with the whoosh, the very definition of hitting the ground running, because that was life, and you took your moments of calm when you could get them. Lee Hale, deputy engineer, gave Karenna a hurried glance of acknowledgement, locks swinging as she turned back to her display. Her hand danced in the air absent-mindedly, but rhythmically as she finished up, acting like a metronome keeping the heartbeat of this pulsating, alive, busy department. "Sorry for making you come up here, Captain," she said, facing Karenna once more, "but with just me running the shop right now. You're fine, Lee. What's up?" Hale murmured apologetically and turned off to sign reports thrust into her hand by an eager crewman. A console beeped and she swore under her breath, rushing to it and swiping away oncoming alerts. Karenna crossed her arms in the cool air and glanced around the Spartan space. The drive was accessible from here, via EVA through an airlock. Also accessible was a low-pressure environment for cold welding and another room for traditional welding, airtight to prevent the spread of fire. Most of engineering resembled a machine shop, similar to what could be found in parts of the hangar for craft maintenance. Hale, however, now beckoned Karenna to a fancier part of the department, where the self-described physics nerds did most of their experiments and modeling. "Why we're dead in the water," she said, pulling up some visuals. "We think there were explosives set around our exit vector, causing our drives to fail and setting up a chain reaction all around space here. Anyway, it got me thinking of some weird stories out of Tau Ceti, so I contacted the research scientists there. They sent me this." She looked at Karenna's nonplussed expression and translated. "Shifting molecular structure in some of our superatomic matter, same as our samples, probably caused by some atomic dark matter, some kind we've never identified." Karenna kneaded her forehead. "Okay, so this unknown dark matter, how did it affect our drive?" Hale sighed. "You're asking the wrong question. You know how the Albertson-Bradley drive works because of a negative mass equation, and you need exotic matter for that? Negative mass wormholes can possibly cause travel between universes or time. The dark matter may have caused enough buildup of exotic matter to bring Hawking here. But yes, maybe a chain reaction then subsequently eliminated the exotic matter to the point we can't initiate a drive bubble. That meant, maybe, if they could reverse engineer the whole process, they could send Hawking back where they came from. No. They didn't even understand where they came from or how to harness whatever happened to direct Hawking to the correct location or time or... And why Hawking? That was too weird a coincidence, unless it was no coincidence at all. Karenna rubbed her shoulders, suddenly feeling even colder, or maybe the goose flesh pricking her arms had nothing to do with the climate. Unknown dark matter. A new scientific discovery? Not really their strength. They weren't a science ship. She returned to something her younger self had said yesterday, not exactly in words, but the sentiment conveyed. The vial, propulsion, possibly related to the situation. "Lee, I suspect a link between my being an ancient and what happened here. Get the team on Tau to add a few Renaissance research experts." Hale nodded. "There's something else, ma'am." Karenna cut her eyes at her. "What now? Did the astronauts of the Mercury program slam into our bow?" "The bomb on Earth against President Ashanti. The intel team at Hawking is convinced there's some sort of tie to what happened and wants me to send the summary of my findings." "That seems like a stretch," Karenna sighed. "Guess it can't hurt." In the space between the rings, Karenna moaned and rolled her shoulders. All this talk of matter and ancients and time travel, and now her memories were getting worse. "My name is Karenna Lakani." The mantra helped her get a grip when the distortion was really bad. "I am a captain." She breathed in and out in consistent rhythm. trying to get a handle on reality. The false memories varied. In some, she had children. In others, she survived disaster. None of the memories explained how exactly she became an ancient. She had found out because she had thought she was pregnant and had gone to sickbay. They eventually did a cellular scan, and there you had it. At the time, she had been serving on ESS Blaze as an ensign. Back on Hawking, she had been thought of as an obnoxious know-it-all, a dusthead, and a troublemaker. But on Blaze, her reputation was worse. She had kept to herself down in the maintenance department. No one knew her, except knowing she was the liar who had gotten kicked off her previous ship for trying to take down a superior officer's career. Had she been pregnant, would further names have been applied to her? Slatin, Slag, Strumpet. Instead, she was outed as an ancient, and the very act of becoming one had washed away her sins and created a new Karenna, one that could garner respect. Although she probably had been one for 5 years by that point, around the time of the fire. Wait, what fire? My name is Karenna Lakani. There was never a fire. I never died in a fire. Karenna's quarters, a well-appointed deluxe berth with plush carpet and stylish furnishings, spelled extravagance, not quite deserved, nor fair, when people were doubling and tripling up. Sure, she had done her time in similar accommodations, but that still didn't make it right. In any case, Tim slotted into her life perfectly, adding his scant possessions and a touch of whimsy to the place, and Karenna would at times walk her rooms inhaling the smell of him, pleasant and male, lingering even as he spent extra hours on shift, or training on flight simulators, or drinking with friends. She was enjoying a well-deserved bath when the Quantcom chimed. She did the math, converting to what time it currently was at command. Late. And a weekend, too. That could only be one person. The Hawking team was right. The bombs deployed against the president shares properties with the substances mired you outside of the bomb garden system. Well, hello to you too, sir. Karenna belted her robe tighter and tucked her short hair behind her ear. Admiral Montague gave her a wan smile in response and cleared his throat before continuing. It's not a solid connection yet, and the capabilities of the Shanti bomb are something we're still working. It had properties that made it virtually undetectable, and unfortunately, we still haven't developed a system to detect any others that may be out there. But I thought, that you would be wanting to know about potential threats to your security, he said dryly. I do so apologize for interrupting your me time. So it's Walder. Something to do with his terrorist plans? Perhaps. Hawking tracked the travel of Walder's supposed courier, codenamed Bob. Travel receipts show he went to Goral about 2.5 years ago and then left the planet around the same time the bomber headed to the Sol system. Lots of angles to explore, Karenna, her boss said with a sigh. There's some possibility in the matter you found doesn't affect the Martian FTL drive the same way. Since Corrales has a modified version of the Martian drive, we need to engage their ship's orbiting bomb, see if they're able to make the drive bubble out here. And we're definitely not discounting a Walder connection. He's officially on the target list. So we have kill capture authority? For now, the president prefers capture over kill, said Montague. If we want more, we need to convince the UIG presence in sector as well, which is also a mission of yours, Captain. Karenna nodded slowly, connections blooming in her head. Montague grimaced. Your earlier refusal to sail toward bomb caused a star, but I backed you up. You're right. Davis couldn't issue orders. But with this new development, I understand, sir. We'll start heading in system. Fleet Command has determined we need to consolidate all of Earth Union forces in the system. Hawking, Kayam, and Knight are all to be part of a new bomb garden fleet. A fleet? Karenna frowned. Coordinated by whom? From back on Earth? Lakani, you've served with me for decades. No finer captain has existed in the Union. Wait, Ken, what the hell? It's within my rights to nominate persons for flag rank, and it's something I do with pride and cheer. I proclaim you Rear Admiral Lakani, promotable. Oh, shit. Karenna's initial reaction was to sit stock still, helpless, like a salak. Then she let out a weird frozen smile, like a grinning salak. No, really, Ken, she finally responded. Montague waited her out. She let out her breath. This isn't a good idea. Lakani, you turned down yet another promotion. That's it for you. You realize that? You'll be spitting in the faces of Fleet Command. But I can turn it down? That's something I'm allowed to do? For fuck's sake. No, really. She ran her fingers through her hair. I'm up for promotion back home anyway, aren't I? That's not the problem. It's creating an entire bureaucracy for 3 ships to deal with one problem. Keep me a senior captain. Give me primacy over decisions. What's wrong with that? This isn't just one problem, it's a cornucopia. An op against a Badal figure, drive failures, terrorist activity through the region, and who in the hells knows if we'll lose Quantcom again, leaving everyone isolated. We need flag rank to deal with the diplomacy aspect. We need one fleet representative voice to engage with Governor Callis of Baumgarten, the UIG, and if necessary, the Corelli forces and system. You also own any other Union military element in the area. We're dealing with 3 ships, 2 time periods, and an unallied government that wants nothing more than to see our rear ends. Come on, Karenna, you know this. Why don't you offer it to Wendell Ma? Oh, she squinted. What? That's the problem. Montague nodded to himself, as if he'd solve a grand mystery. Don't try to psychoanalyze me, Ken. Fine, he said, smile playing on his lips. I won't mention that your old captain makes you self-conscious. He tugged at his uniform primly. I, for one, have no concerns outranking my former boss. Yeah, she said sarcastically. I've noticed. Just to make it clear, he said softly, you can't turn it down. Oh, sure, maybe you can throw up a huge fuss, be so obnoxious about it that Fleet Command decides you're not suited for the position anyway, but for obvious reasons, I wouldn't quite recommend that course of action. Karenna groaned. Montague didn't understand how much making a fuss might be worth it. It wasn't just Wendell Ma, it was everything. Could she do it? Was it worth the fuss? Was it worth killing her chances of promotion ever again? She would need a flagship. It would not be Khayyam. She already realized that. The best choice would be Hawking. Hawking was a bigger ship. It was designed to handle VIPs, with a flex office space even. It had a huge briefing theater, unlike Khayyam's makeshift meeting room. It was the only ship in the new fleet not from the time period, so it needed some face time. And it would separate her from her old ship, from those old habits. Why were the best solutions the most annoying? So she would move to Hawking, away from Tim. Dear gods, that would piss him off terribly. Not the move itself, but that she would make that decision without his input, because she would. She already knew he'd be too overprotective of her, would want her to stay at home. She winced. To Hawking, toward Payne. Facing her past, sharing the same space with Donald Riley, dealing with this younger her she'd rather have forgotten. Montague had his mind made up, even though 2.5 weeks before he'd been yelling at her. That's how things went in the fleet. Damn it, she was going to regret this. Okay, Admiral, of course. Happy to serve.